It's time to move out. New tonight on Our News Live at 7, Shantytown residents have 28 days to find somewhere else to live. Plus, upgrades set for Cat Island, including the completion of clinics on that island. And a memorial service held in honor of the late Ed Bethel, distinguished journalist and diplomat. And then in Our News at 7:30, are we ready to introduce transgender issues to classroom education?
I think you ought to teach the children the Bible, don't teach them about sexual subjects.
Our News Live at 7 starts now. Welcome to Our News Live at 7. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Kendino Knowles. The immigration minister telling Shantytown residents in Abaco they have less than 30 days to move out. Berthany McDermott tells us over 200 of them have already been served eviction notices.
Under the building code, it is 28 days that you have to issue an order of demolition or more or less eviction.
The deadline comes after it was revealed that 260 eviction notices were served to homes in a shantytown off Essie Boodle Highway in Abaco. In a statement Tuesday, the Unregulated Communities Action Task Force revealed the evictions were served, adding the atmosphere for the operation was peaceful, calm, and without incident.
So we want to ensure that whatever is done within the parameters of the law, and that everything is done in order and decency and respect, but it is done as aggressively and as quickly as we possibly can.
Last month, Prime Minister Philip Davis put residents of shantytowns across the Bahamas on notice that they will be required to find alternative housing, but gave no timeline on when demolition would begin. Works and Utilities Minister Alfred Sears recently announced that Cabinet reconvened the Shantytown Task Force. In 2018, the Shantytown Action Task Force was formed, but a court injunction halted its work. Bell reiterated that more than just illegal immigrants are in shantytowns.
In addition to the illegal immigrants, you have documented migrants who live in those communities, and you also have persons who are Bahamians outright living in those communities.
Now, despite heavy criticism of the government's decision to move forward with demolishing shantytowns, Bell saying the matter will be handled as humanely as possible.
So the government has to strike a delicate balance in terms of ensuring that when these orders, or we give the persons an opportunity to first of all move, secondly, that we through social services provide the kind of assistance that is needed. So we want to ensure that we provide an opportunity, we identify who these people are, and we comply with the law as it relates to the service of notices, and that is what we're doing.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
A 22-year-old man denying he killed the husband of former Social Services Minister Melanie Griffin on December 23rd in 2021. DiMaggio Lockhart pleaded not guilty to allegations that he fatally shot Leon Griffin and conspired with others to commit the murder at his arraignment before Senior Justice Bernard Turner. Lockhart, who is in custody, appearing in court via video link. A gunman shot Griffin in the head soon after he pulled up to his home in Winton Meadows. Lockhart will appear before Turner again on March 28 for a voluntary bill of indictment. Well, Prime Minister Philip Davis announcing new development for Cat Island, which includes the completion of the island's clinics. Speaking at the groundbreaking ceremony for a new airport, Davis said he's looking forward to other new projects. Prime Minister says government will work to make the Bahamas less Nassau-centric.
The clinics were well on their way, and they had no action for the last 4 or 5 years. Action is about to start very soon on our clinics.
Davis, who is also the area member of parliament for that island, acknowledging the Bahamas is one of the most unhealthy countries in the region and stressed the importance of healthcare services. Cat Islanders also heard new classrooms will be built. When asked for a timeline on the developments, the Prime Minister said this.
After next week, I should be able to give you more definitive answers because I'm still in the preliminary stages of negotiations. You know, when you announce these things, people expect things to happen right away, and/or mischief gets afoot with announcements. So when you hear anything from me, you know that it's well on the way to being actualized.
All right, we've got much more to get to in a moment, including some safer streets for pedestrians. But for now, it's time for your first look at temperatures. Meteorologist Greg Thompson, he's in the Weather Center with the latest. Greg?
Yeah, Cantino, another beautiful evening setting up for us. And
hopefully that continues into the weekend.
Yeah, actually into next week.
All right,
We'll see that
stuff.
shortly.
Good stuff.
But yeah, very lovely evening outside our studios right now. Temperatures are in the upper 70s, a slightly warm evening. Few clouds, the winds out of the south-southeast at 13 miles per hour, and your feels like temperature is at 77. Right now, it's 77 in Freeport, also in Marsh Harbor, Abaco. We pick up 79 in Allenstown, Bimini. 78 in Great Harbor Key, over in Nicholstown, Andros, here in the capital, Governor's Harbor. You guys 77 as well. 78 in Kemps Bay. More 77s popping up in Arthurstown, Cat Island, Coburn Town, San Salvador, and in Deadman's Key. Georgetown, 78, Southeast Bahamas. 79 in Duncantown, Ragged Island. 77 in Colonel Hill, Cricket Island. 78 in Delectable Bay and Abrams Bay. Matthewtown, Inagua, 81, and our neighbors to the southeast, Tricks and Caicos Islands, you are currently in the upper 70s. Taking a look at satellite picture, nothing really to talk about. That ridge of high pressure remains the dominant weather feature, and that's going to continue to stay with us through the weekend. That ridge is going to be responsible for some very nice warm temperatures. Our winds are going to be turning more towards the east to southeast, so that's going to bring in the warmer temperatures, but that ridge will keep fronts well to the north, so we don't expect any weather for the weekend. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us. Look at your extended forecast.
Thanks, Greg. And still to come on our news, making safer streets for pedestrians, and how new legislation is set to make room for greater transparency and accountability in public funds. And later, a new art space for Grand Bahamians. We'll tell you where when our news continues.
It's your thing. Do what you want to do. It's your thing. Do what you want to do. Oh, it's your thing.
A suite of finance bills focusing on the public sector, expected to provide more transparency and accountability for public funds. That's according to Economic Affairs Minister Michael Alquitas, who led off debate on the public procurement and public finance management bills in the Senate this week. Alquitas says once passed, they would make way for a public sector audit committee.
Provides for the establishment of the Public Sector Audit Committee with the Auditor General as one of its members, and it lays out the qualifications for the qualifications of those members appointed to the committee. And so it deals with reviewing and recommending approval of internal audit reports, Auditor General report, recommending and periodically reviewing an internal audit charter for the government for approval by the Auditor General. So we're establishing a public sector audit committee to oversee all matters related to audit within the public sector.
Now, the opposition voted against the bills. Senator Michaela Barnett Ellis saying it allows for more secret deals.
This bill is evidence of this administration's steady moonwalk away from being trustworthy and exercising good governance, accountability, and transparency. Madam President, this draft legislation increases the list of contracts that are kept secret, more secret deals with our public resources.
All right, in tonight's Work in Progress segment, we take a closer look at how the Ministry of Works is looking to make roads safer for pedestrians, particularly those with disabilities. Megan Shepard has more.
Senior civil engineer in the Ministry of Works, Francis Clark, says road safety is more than making streets safer and more comfortable for motorists. The Ministry of Works is also interested in doing that and more for pedestrians.
Traffic volumes are increasing, and pedestrians share the roads with the vehicles. And so we also have a pedestrian safety program.
Here's the ministry's solution for those problems.
Once we identify these sidewalks that are in bad condition, we will go and repair them.
Clark shares the main areas of concern for pedestrians.
East Street, between Carmichael Road all the way to around the Golden Gates shopping center area. We are also Peter Street, Mont Royal and Montrose Avenue. And we are also thinking about doing some sidewalk repairs on Bay Street too, but we're just scoping that.
He adds the ministry has had consultation with the Bahamas Association for the Physically Disabled, who has also expressed concerns. Reporting for Work in Progress for Our News, I'm Megan Shepard.
When our news comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as 16 U.S. states support Mexico's suit against U.S. gun manufacturers. Plus, new art on display at Grand Bahama's Rand Nature Center. And later, remembering veteran broadcaster and distinguished diplomat Ed Bethel. The details when our news returns. This is our news. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. The Manhattan grand jury investigating Donald Trump over hush money payments turned to other matters on Thursday, delaying any vote on a historic indictment of the former president. That's according to a person familiar with the matter who says it is unclear whether prosecutors plan to question more witnesses before the grand jurors next week or when a vote might be taken. Prosecutors say Trump himself had created a false expectation of being arrested this week. Ugandan lawmakers on Tuesday approving some of the world's harshest anti-gay laws, making some crimes punishable by death and imposing up to 20 years in prison for people identifying as LGBTQ+. The new legislation constitutes a further crackdown on the community in a country where same-sex relations were already illegal, punishable by life imprisonment.
The last time the legislation was around, there were cases of suicide. So this time, this law is worse than the one that was here before because it has the death penalty. And many people will be worried. Many people would be scared.
If the AHA is signed into law and enacted, it would impinge upon universal human rights, jeopardize progress in the fight against HIV/AIDS, deter tourism and invest in Uganda and damage Uganda's international reputation.
U.S. lawmakers pressing TikTok CEO Shou Chew Thursday over data security and harmful content during a tense committee hearing. The hugely popular video sharing app's CEO said it prioritizes user safety and should not be banned due to its Chinese connections. TikTok American user base ballooned to 150 million in a few short years, but its increasing dominance is being threatened by a potential nationwide ban in the United States amid growing data fears among officials.
Almost all the data is under the that's not public, is under the definition of protected data. This accepted data that you mentioned, I can get back to your team on this, is really for interoperability purposes, to make sure that the business can still operate and American users are still getting the benefit.
Can you tell us
of a global platform.
Where the data goes and how it's used by the company?
It will travel outside of the United States, but I can get back to you on the specifics. It's data that it cannot be used to identify users. So it really is data that ensures the interoperability of the platform.
And finally, 16 U.S. states expressing support for Mexico's appeal in a civil lawsuit against U.S. gun manufacturers. This as a handful of Caribbean governments, including the Bahamas, are backing the same suit. Mexico said last week it had filed an appeal in a $10 billion lawsuit seeking to hold U.S. gun makers responsible for facilitating the trafficking of deadly weapons across the border. Still to come in our news, today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was March 24th and the death of the man whose Shirley Street on New Providence was named after. Greg is also back with your extended weather forecast. And then in our news at 7:30, a man admits to trying to snatch a girl from a schoolyard. Details from inside the courtroom. That's coming up when Our News continues.
This segment of the news is brought to you by H.G. Christie. List your home in Grand Bahama with H.G. Christie. Visit our new office in the Port Lakaya Marketplace. H.G. Christie, celebrating over 100 years of service.
There's a new attraction for Grand Bahamian art lovers as Art Lukaya officially opened last night at the Rand Nature Center. The organization is focused on bringing art to the island. A number of art pieces by Bahamian artists were on full display. Chairman of the organization, Fatima Kabu, says the event will attract those who are interested in art, while West Grand Bahama and Bimini MP Obi Wilcombe says art is important.
Being an artist is not an easy life. You live off what you sell, and if you don't sell, you got to get a second job, and usually sometimes not well-paying jobs, you know, just to keep your life of artist going. So it was really important to make sure that it's not a dying profession, really. And so it was wonderful to go through this journey and meet all these artists.
But we must appreciate that we are just a talented people. And if we can stop one day and begin to appreciate, particularly at this 50th anniversary, that all Bahamians have talent. And we can put aside the colors, and we can put aside the politics, we put aside everything. Then we'll have a great country to celebrate, because that's when we begin to appreciate we are one people, united under God. And if we understand that, then I think our country will be that much greater.
Ambassador for Cultural Affairs Jamal Roll and President of the Grand Bahama Artists Association, Ben Ferguson Jr., both saying that they're encouraged and inspired.
It shows an eclectic range of styles, subjects, and you could feel that the artists put all of their passion in those pieces. I think this is a show that will transcend Freeport, Grand Bahama, and touch the world. This is an amazing show, and I encourage the Bahamas to view this awesome show.
Here in Grand Bahama, this is something that we can finally call our own. So it's a highlight for us. It's an inspiration, it's an encouragement, as well as it's something for us to have fun and be around like-minded people.
All right, it's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was, March 24th, including last year's royal visit. Take a look. On this day in Bahamian history, in 1771, William Shirley died in Roxbury, Massachusetts. Shirley was governor of these islands from 1760 to 1768. Shirley Street in downtown Nassau is named after him. Fast forward to 1940, when Frank Watson was born in Gordon's Long Island. Watson is a retired civil servant, former politician, cabinet minister, deputy prime minister, and deputy to the governor general. On March 25, 2010, a stretch of road from South Ocean Boulevard to Adelaide Road was named the Frank Watson Highway. Then in 1964, Richard George Dean died in Miami. Known by his stage name Sweet Richard, he was an entertainer, nightclub owner, limbo and fire dancer, and junkaneur. Born in Long Island, his talents would take him to perform in clubs locally and abroad. Often referred to as the King of Junkanoo, Percy Vola Francis addressing the Historical Society in 2018 on the life and times of Sweet Richard. Then in 2015, police found the lifeless body of well-known Australian podiatrist Philip Vasily in the dining room of his old Fort Bay home. A week later, his wife Donna was arrested and charged. She was found guilty that year and sentenced to 20 years in prison. In 2017, the Court of Appeal quashed the sentence, leading to a retrial that ended in her acquittal just 2 weeks ago on March 10th by a 9-member jury. March 24th, 2016. As the Peter Nygaard Louis Bacon Save the Bay's murder plot scandal captured national attention, then Prime Minister Perry Christie defended against claims he was corrupt, saying he would not allow his name or character to be tarnished.
Call me what you like, and they have. Assail me as you will, and they do. Attribute to me all the manner of transgressions that you wish. But the one thing, Mr. Speaker, I have tried to maintain is they could never credibly accuse me of being corrupt.
5 years later, in 2021, then Tourism and Aviation Minister Dionisio de Aguilar telling Parliament government would purchase the Hurricane Dorian-ravaged Grand Bahama International Airport from Port Holdings and Port Group Limited for $1. Government said the owners had shown no interest in restoring the airport despite the commitment to provide an international airport in the Hawksbill Creek Agreement. And finally, in 2022, on their final stop of their Royal Caribbean tour, the Bahamas welcomed the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge to Nassau on the occasion of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Prince William and Kate's visit also took them to Abaco and Grand Bahama, where several sites and businesses were highlighted. Their visit reigniting a decades-old slavery reparations debate across the region. All right, well, many knew him as a man of business. Eldred Ed Bethel planned his memorial service to the T. Despite serving as a statesman for the country on several occasions, the giant of a man and veteran broadcaster did not want any fanfare. Today, a memorial service planned by Bethel himself was held in his honor at his church, St. Mary's, the Virgin Anglican Church, where some of his favorite hymns were sung by those who gathered to remember this distinguished diplomat. His granddaughters, Erin and Selena Belmont, remembering him fondly.
He often used to tease Mom that he wished he had grandchildren before he had children. I think being a grandfather was one of his most enjoyable life experiences. He often told us stories of growing up in his birthplace, West End, Grand Bahama. And he used to say that because he was born in Grand Bahama, he was not just a Bahamian, but a grand Bahamian. And because we were born in Nassau, we were just Bahamians. I will always remember his advice to us. He said, "We all want to live till we die. Life is short, so we start first. And why was not answer? The answer is we."
The memorial service was, as we said, it was planned to a T, and Canon Harry Ward spoke to how Bethel wanted the homily to be done by the late Canon Warren Roll. Ward also reciting part of Bethel's favorite Bible verse.
Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Never be conceited. Repay no one evil for evil, but take thought for what is noble in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends upon you, live peaceably with all. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
Bethel was 82 years old. We continue to send our condolences to the entire Bethel family. May his soul rest in peace. If you want to see that again and for all of today's top stories, visit ournews.bs. We're going to do it for us in News at 7. Joining us now, Talia Hall. She's got the latest headlines. Talia?
Yes, Ken, it's Friday. Any weekend plans?
Still trying to work those out.
Okay.
I wanted to say, but you know what? If I go and say it, then I'm committed to it, so I don't want to say it just yet.
Right. Well, I hope you do something.
But hey, we've got a happy hour in a bit, so yeah, that's my plan for now.
Okay, sounds great. Well, coming up in news, transgender education and a hold on new work permits. Here are your latest headlines.
Is it time for transgender education in the classroom? New tonight on Our News Live at 7:30. How some Bahamians feel about the issue. On hold, the immigration minister says government has stopped issuing new work permits. We'll tell you why. Plus, a Bahamian actor claims he was racially profiled after he was kicked off a Delta Airlines flight. And why some people should be screened for colon cancer at an earlier age. That story straight ahead. Our News Live at 7:30 starts in a moment.
With over 25 years in business.
Whether you're battling a chronic condition or offsetting a new injury, Doctors Hospital's comprehensive rehab services offer the help you need now. Go to doctors. 3 advanced facilities at Collins Avenue, Carmichael Road in Cable Beach means your personalized plan for care is just a visit away. From physiotherapy to occupational therapy and speech and language pathology, our team approach is all about rebuilding together. For a full list of services, visit doctorshosp.com/rehabilitation. Doctors Hospital, trusted and best care now. Isn't your health worth it?
Welcome to our news and thank you for joining us. I'm Italia Hall. After a top education official suggested students be introduced to what many Bahamians would consider a taboo topic, residents are weighing in. Our Jamila Mizik has reaction tonight.
It needs to be addressed, and not addressed that you would be pushing an agenda or you would be taking a side or position, but students need to be aware.
That's Bahama's Union of Teachers President Belinda Wilson saying on Thursday she believes it's time for government to tackle the issue of transgender education in schools. These residents we spoke to today say they agree.
I think it should be done when they're early, when they're young.
In a sense, yes, because when they get in the grade 10, they'll know more about it anyhow, so you might as well just let them know now before they get out of school, because it'll be worse.
Definitely not encourage it, but but I think it would be important to introduce it, especially to those who are going off to school, because the Bahamas were kind of protected in this little bubble over here, and so when they get introduced to stuff like that, they don't really know how to handle it sometimes.
But how early is early enough for the discussion?
Probably not like grades 1, 2, and 3, but maybe grade 4 and 5, when they're old enough to know sort of what's going on.
I wouldn't say earlier than the teenage years.
But not everyone was open to the idea. These residents we spoke to say not so fast.
The place for that to be taught is in the home. The mother and the father should be teaching that. Our teachers are there to teach education, not moral issues of transgender and all of that.
I think you ought to teach the children the Bible, don't teach them about sex subjects, because, plenty of that going on in the school now, right? So you try to avoid that, from them. I'm sending them in a new direction, because what you tell children, they instill that in their brains, and many of them develop that.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Mizik.
All right, thanks, Jamila. Well, a 22-year-old man has admitted to trying to snatch a 7-year-old girl from her school. Alexander Coakley Jr. pleaded guilty to attempted child stealing when he appeared before Senior Justice Bernard Turner after a psychiatrist deemed him fit to plead. Coakley will be sentenced on April 6. Prosecutors say Coakley went to Nassau Christian Academy on March 30, 2021 and told the child that her mother had sent him for her. However, the child's mother was entering the schoolyard as she saw a stranger trying to lure her daughter away. The mother called out to her daughter, who ran to the car, prompting Coakley to run away. Well, 2 men were arrested in Eleuthera after police found cocaine and marijuana in a Harbor Island home. Shortly after 10 p.m. on Thursday, officers attached to Operation Spring Break executed a search warrant on a home on Colebrook Street. Now, during the search, the officers found marijuana and cocaine. The estimated weight and street value of the drugs was not released by police. Investigations are continuing. The government has stopped issuing new work permits. That's according to Immigration Minister Keith Bell, who says talks are underway to revamp the process. Bell explaining on average 15,000 work permits are approved each year out of the more than 30,000 applications that are submitted.
If it is that we have good reason why we would not want to grant any category of status in the country, then that is our prerogative. And so, therefore, it isn't a matter of what the persons on the outside may say or believe. The reality is that we want to ensure that we keep the Bahamas for Bahamians and we protect it for future generations to come.
For Haitian nationals amid ongoing economic and political unrest there. Today, Bell says the Bahamas reserves the right to determine who will be allowed to enter the country.
We have not been issuing new work permits. We have introduced a very, very rigid and strict process, and we have ensured that all of the processes that we do, that we have amplified and reviewed them, and that is a continuous ongoing process.
Beautiful conditions in the capital today. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with a look at our current conditions. Good evening, Greg. I'm hoping for some great weather this weekend.
Well, you have somebody to please.
Yes.
A little birdie told me somebody had a birthday
yesterday.
Yes, you did,
Yeah,
my son.
Happy birthday,
Thanks
Saint.
so much, yes.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty nice and beautiful weekend. Our high-pressure ridge is in charge, and that's going to continue to keep us with these warm temperatures. Warm tonight outside our studios right now, 77 with a few clouds. The wind's out of south-southeast, so we have a little bit of a breeze that might take some of that off the heat, but your feels-like temperature is still at 77. Ridge of high pressure in charge, and it's dominating our weather. Our winds are now more towards the east to southeast, and that will continue to bring in those warm temperatures, some patchy clouds, maybe even an isolated shower, and that will continue through the weekend. That's your first check on weather. Stick with us. A look at your extended forecast is still to come.
When our news comes back from the break, a Bahamian actor has kicked off a Delta flight claiming racism. But first, the union representing nurses is working on finding ways to keep nurses on the job and in the country. And later, the untapped dog show industry. Why one expert says the country could be missing out on millions. That's all coming up when our news returns.
Recently elected Bahamas Nurses Union President Muriel Lightbourne is looking to address the long-standing issue of nurse retention. Speaking on the sidelines of the National Tripartite Council Annual General Assembly, Lightbourne says the plan is to find a way to improve provisions to keep nurses. The latest industrial agreement signed under former President Amantia Williams saw a retention plan for nurses, but Lightbourne says a lot of the nurses aren't pleased. There's also the issue of nurses working in family islands.
We want to revisit that retention plan to make it more profitable for our nurses. We also have a problem with our nurses going to the family for islands. We have some islands that are called hardship, and where our nurses, there's no banking, there's no, the modern day things that they need. And so we find our nurses have to travel to Nassau to collect their salaries.
Lightbourne says one nurse leaving the healthcare system is too much. While she says government has been trying, she believes there's a lot more work to be done. She's also dispelling talks that it's all about the money.
Nurses need to have a clear career plan for them. You have nurses who've been working with 20, 25 years and still not gotten one promotion. And so we need to make that more fair, have a fair ground for all nurses. We have nurses who've been 25 years as a trained clinical nurse. We have a promotion as senior trained clinical nurse. They've not yet gotten that promotion.
He's appeared in Oscar-nominated Lee Daniels' The Butler and plays Herman on the television series Underground since 2016. We're talking about veteran Bahamian actor and producer and Sir Sidney Poitier's nephew and protege, Jeffrey Poitier. Now, despite his decorated career in Hollywood, Poitier became the target of what he's calling blatant racism after he was kicked off a Delta Airlines flight earlier this month. Now, our Candino Knowles spoke with Poitier, who's currently filming in New Orleans, about the ordeal, which he says has left him distraught.
I had said to the people at Delta I hope there is a camera on the plane because it would show my actions.
Bahamian actor Jeffrey Portier says he left the Bahamas on a Delta flight to New Orleans on March 6th. While on a connecting to Atlanta, he says a red-haired female passenger used a racial slur against him, saying "F you" before using the N-word. Poitier, who is the nephew and protege of Bahamian screen legend Sir Sidney Poitier, says after a seating mix-up, the passenger used the racial slur as he tried to get his beverages from under the seat to relocate. However, he claims the woman became irate as he was moving. And once he sat down, he says he called his wife Ellie to tell her what was happening. That's when he noticed the woman pushing the attendant call button.
The young little white girl turned around as I was speaking to my wife. You will hear me on the phone saying, "I'm talking with my wife." She pressed the blue button, the stewardess came and spoke with her. I had no idea what they were talking about.
Still on the phone with his wife at this point, Poitier claims that's when a white flight attendant got involved.
She stood behind me as I was sitting down. So I had to turn my head up to her. And she had said something like, "What happened?" I started to tell her what happened, and all she said was, "Keep it up." I was not given a chance to tell my story. And at this time, I was pumping the albuterol in my lungs to get to start breathing normally, because I think all of it had created this panic attack.
He says his shock continued when the flight attendant asked him to leave the plane instead of the woman who used the slur. The next day, Poitier returned to the airport and spoke with a representative who handles onboard incidents.
She looked it up. She said, "This is not good," and a red flag, because the stewardesses did not file an incident report, especially since the plane left the gate, stopped, and came back to the gate. And she said, "This is not good."
It was only then, he says, he was finally able to tell his story, filing an incident report. He was glowing about the support from the Atlanta Delta crew.
Do I want to be financially compensated? No, I don't. What I need is an apology. It's unacceptable that I said what I was said to by the passenger, whom I would like to know her name, and the two stewardesses that were just as worse.
It has been nearly a month since the incident, and Poitier's publicist, Arthea Nixon, claims attempts to resolve the issue have been met with resistance from airline representatives, who she said advised it was being investigated. Our news reached out to the airline, but Delta did not immediately respond to requests for comment.
This segment of the news is brought to you by H.G. Christie. List your home in Grand Bahama with H.G. Christie. Visit our new office in the Port Lakaya Marketplace. H.G. Christie, celebrating over 100 years of service.
Did you know that breeding dogs and dog shows are multi-million-dollar industries across the world? Well, tonight, a dog expert and founder of Eagle Eye Kennel in Grand Bahama, Corey Damiano, says breeding dogs can be big for the Bahamas if done right, adding that dog shows can also be money makers.
This could actually be an industry. You know, I take my smaller dogs and I travel to dog shows and I spend thousands of dollars. I have a dog that's actually away now in show school, and she's been going to show school. She got like about 5 first place and 1 best female, and then she went to another show this week and got a few second place and third place.
That's dog expert and founder of Eagle Eye Kennel, Corey Damianos. He says dog shows can generate thousands of dollars for the country, but he says it just needs the right attention.
And I went to a show, and when I got to the location, I was directed into I could call it a coliseum with marble tiles on the floor and central AC, and these people had dogs in there because in America, they value and appreciate dogs.
And as for those who want to breed dogs, he says there should be a process.
If you want to breed a dog, it should be a licensed breeder. There should be a system. If someone wants to import a dog, you go to agriculture, and instead of them just giving a permit, they should refer you to someone that is a registered breeder. This could actually be an industry.
And for those who crossbreed dogs, he says it should stop.
Every breed has a trait. And so if you mix it you don't know exactly which good or bad trait you're going to get. And so it's something negative. And my Lord, there is so much stray dogs.
When our news comes back from the break, we'll tell you what our Carifta swimmers are aiming for when they begin competition.
Plus, coming up in sports for you tonight, the local basketball league heating up as the playoffs go even deeper. We'll give you the latest details just ahead. All that and more coming up in sports.
Plus, how a Grand Bahama-based program is helping to make cancer screening more accessible for vulnerable women. We have the details when our news returns. This is our news. Welcome back. The Bahamas is sending a 39-member team to Curacao next month, and the excitement is building. That's because the Bahamas will return to the Carifta pools for the fourth time consecutive champions. Our Sasha Lightborn got to sit down with the head of the Bahamas Aquatics Federation. She filed this report.
The on-paper goal is to win Carifta. We've done it for 4 consecutive years already. As a matter of fact, I'm very bold in saying that we're the only federation in the Bahamas and in the region to win Carifta for 4 consecutive years.
That's Bahamas Aquatics Federation President Algernon Cargill's response when I asked him about the overall goal for the 2023 Bahamas Carifta swim team. The 39-member team was named back on March 5th, and as the 4-time champions, I asked Cargill whether he thinks there's any pressure to return with a 5th crown.
Of course there's pressure. I was speaking to Lyndon Maycock yesterday, and he actually wants to boom in or beam in Carifta on the big screen here for track and field to motivate the team here, because the Bahamas is expected to win. So we have a lot of pressure. We know that there's going to be a lot of tough competition. The Bahamas is not the only country who is progressing in aquatics, but we want the swimmers to do their best. And while we want to win, if doing their best means 2nd or 3rd place, then we'll be happy with that also.
I also asked the Bahamas Aquatics Federation president why he thinks the Bahamas' swim teams have done so well over the past 4 years.
Well, I want to give credit to the coaches. The coaches have done a great job in their individual club programs. When you have a coach who's bringing 11 or 10 swimmers on a team, that tells you or speaks to how successful the team on the club program is. Also, we have some of the smaller clubs who are bringing 3, 4, 5 swimmers on the team. That also speaks well to the strength of those teams. And of course, the Freeport contingent. We lost Abaco with Dorian, but nonetheless, Freeport remains strong.
Now, we will have more from Cargill in the coming days. The team is scheduled to leave for Curacao on April 4th. Reporting for our news, I'm Sasha Lightborn.
All right, thanks, Sasha. Well, teams facing elimination as the New Providence Basketball Association playoffs continued last night. Meanwhile, youth flag football players excited about an upcoming high school tournament. Marcellus Hall, who spent many years as a part of the Our News team, is bidding us farewell today. He leaves us now with one last time with a check on sports.
All right, thanks, Natalia. Welcome to our Sports on a Friday, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Well, the New Providence Basketball Association playoffs, they're into the semifinal round. Last night, a couple of teams trying to stave off elimination. Two teams trying to book their way into the championship round. Something would have to give. Let's take a look and see exactly what happened. New Providence Basketball Association playoff action continuing last night. Division II matchup between the Rebels and the Essential Store Giants. Now, Giants dominated in Game 1, and we're hoping to do the same thing with Game 2 rolling around. Of course, the Rebels with a little something to say about this. They would actually lead through 3 quarters, but in the 4th quarter, the Giants able to take control, and they would go on to get the victory here, 97-82. They wrapped the series up 2-0. They advanced to the championship round, face off against the winner of the Rockets and Produce Express, which will go at you tonight. Meanwhile, on the Division I side of things, well, again, pretty much the same situation here as the Carroll Contractors Shockers trying to stave off elimination. Rockets still would have none of it. They go on to sweep this series here 2-0 as well. They win 97-80 as, again, they advance to the championship round, and they'll see who their opponent will be as the series progresses. Meanwhile, Bahamas Youth Flag Football League, they have a couple of big events coming up. High school flag football tournament coming away April 1st. Saturday, April 1st. It's going to take place at the open fields over there at the Thomas A. Robinson Stadium. The event will feature a number of local high schools, St. John's, Kingsway Academy, QC, St. Augustine's, all expected to take part. Flag football president Jason Clark on what to expect.
The Bahamas Youth Flag Football League is hosting its first annual high school tournament. This is actually an event we had envisioned doing a little sooner, but we're happy with the point we're at now. And we have 4 schools partaking in this pilot program. And on Saturday, April 1st, from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., they will be competing in the first ever high school flag football tournament.
And that's your check on sports here on this Friday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Italia.
All right, thanks, Marcellus. And from all of us here at Our News, we want to thank you for your extraordinary commitment to sports excellence, from covering some of the biggest events in local and international sports history and transitioning with us through some major network changes. We couldn't have done it without you. And with that, we want to wish you all the best on your journey. Godspeed.
Still ahead on Our News tonight, how early should you be screened for colon cancer? The experts weigh in. Plus, don't go away just yet. Greg is back with your weekend weather planner right after the short break. Stay with us.
Well, welcome back to our news. The Mammogram Access Program over in Grand Bahama making breast cancer screenings more accessible to the most vulnerable women in our communities. Founder Nikia Watson says she was inspired by her work in the public sector and provided some startling facts.
According to the U.S. National Library of Medicine, women with disabilities are often diagnosed with breast cancer at later stages and experience higher rates of breast cancer death compared to women without disabilities. This grim reality persists because disabled patients are less likely to receive screening mammograms in accordance with recommended guidelines. They frequently encounter medical personnel who lack disability-related training and sensitivity. They share the same risk of breast cancer as other women, but yet experience lack of access to cancer screening.
Bone cancer survivor and disability inclusion consultant Aaron Brown noting doctors at the Family Medicine Center revealed over 300 women are diagnosed with breast cancer annually.
Even Coleman, Bahamas reported that health officials has estimated 300 to 500 new cases. That's about 48% of women being diagnosed with breast cancer in the Bahamas under the age of 50. Therefore, promoting access to screening as early as 30 years old, and if you are predisposed, that is, the Bahamas has the highest prevalence for the BRCA1 globally. You would need to be screened or recommended to be screened by the age of 40.
Our young athletes are looking forward to good weather conditions this weekend for Carifta trials. Greg is back in the Weather Center with your weekend weather planner. Greg, how's it looking?
Fantastic weekend expected.
Great news.
And let me say happy birthday to the same.
Same again, yes.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Beautiful weekend for us on the outdoors. Ridge of high pressure is going to continue to dominate our weather. Sunny conditions, warm temperatures expected. The winds are falling off, so you may break one or two of those records there at the Carifta trials, so get out and enjoy. Nothing happening across our area. High pressure is going to keep all the weather systems well to the north, and that high pressure will remain with us throughout the weekend and into early next week. There's a weak front that is expected to possibly make it down here. Future forecast showing not much happening across the area, but that weak front boundary getting in here sometime by Saturday afternoon, and it's going to stall across north central Florida and fizzle out, but not really providing any significant weather for us. Spotty showers, isolated showers across northwest Bahamas by Sunday. Boating has improved, except the seas, we still have some swells out there. Winds out of the southeast to south at 10 to 15 knots in the northwest and central Bahamas. We still have a caution flag for you, but that is mainly along the Atlantic exposed shorelines. Seas 2 to 4 feet, but up to 6 feet in some swells. High tide would be 11:03 tonight. For the southeast Bahamas, the east to south easterly flow at 10 to 15 knots. Seas also 2 to 4 feet, but up to 6 feet in northeast to easterly swells. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your extended forecast, quiet weather with us. That frontal boundary, though it's close to us, we could see a couple isolated showers into the early part of next week, but all in all, conditions would be rather nice, and the weekend is looking rather beautiful. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe weekend, everybody.
Right, Greg, thanks so much. While physicians encourage colon cancer screening after the age of 40, tonight our Jamila Mizik tells us why you should consider screening for the life-threatening illness much earlier.
Surgical oncologist Dr. Wesley Francis says while colon cancer is the third most common type of cancer in the Bahamas, it does not get the attention it should.
The most common in women would be breast, then colon, and then the most common in men would be prostate, and then colon. But colon cancer, when you do get it, if it goes untreated, can cause significant morbidity or decrease in quality of life and mortality or death.
While doctors recommend colon cancer screening beginning at age 45, gastroenterologist Dr. Marcus Cooper says there are cases where it has been presenting at a much earlier age.
We do have Bahamians who have been diagnosed with colon cancer before the age of 45. Some of them have even presented as stage 4 colon cancer before the age of 40. And so we know that our prevalence of colon cancer is increasing.
One young Bahamian diagnosed at what many would consider an early age was Emily Darville's sister, Andrea Darville, who was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer at the age of 30.
Because of her age, further testing was done, genetic testing was done, and we learned that she carried a gene, a FAP gene, familial adenomatous polyposis gene, which typically shows signs of polyp growths very early on. So because we now know that it was through genetics that she was diagnosed with colorectal cancer, we were all advised to be tested for the gene and to have colonoscopies done earlier than the age recommended.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Missick.
All right, thanks for that, Jamila, and thank you for joining us for Our News tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.